thrilled to have the opportunity to interview my fascinating, extremely smart friend, Geoff Hunt. Geoff of Kate's Tutoring. My first client, my very first consulting client, was Kate's Tutoring. That gave me the opportunity, gave me the confidence to get my company started up off the ground. And the first hire we made was Geoff, and he's still there. So a few things went okay. So Geoff, let's just jump right in and talk about why did you become an educator? Why did you feel compelled to become an educator?
Yeah, so I came to education really through a lens of being an activist. I was an activist in college and afterwards, largely around civil rights and the environment. And I saw teaching history, social studies, economics, law, et cetera, as an opportunity to really bring that to public school students here in New York City. And so I spent my career teaching, which was about 9 years in the classroom, teaching those subjects to a group of students who didn't know that they were interested in it. And you know, I get a lot of calls from students these days, or emails from students these days who say, thank God you taught criminal law, because now I understand that I have the right to shut up when I'm being questioned, and you saved my butt. So stuff like that is really gratifying, to say nothing of the fact that students understand their rights. So yeah, that's kind of how I came to it.
Yeah, it's very practical. How does your mission and your vision of education align with Kate's? Why are you a good match there?
Yeah, one thing that was really important to me in education, I turned down an opportunity to teach at like the number 1 or 2 school in Hawaii, a private school called the Iolani School, to stay here in the city and teach at this public school, which is an amazing school. It's called the Beacon School. And I did that because I really believe in the sort of Jeffersonian ideal of education. We need an educated populace in order to have a functional democracy. And we are seeing that break down somewhat right now.
Wait, what it is?
And I really believe that Kate's does a lot of work to democratize education in a lot of ways. So we work with nonprofits. That's how they found me, or I found them. We work with the largest education nonprofit in the UK to make sure they can send students over here to college. We really focus on the kid or the family in front of us, and providing that person, you know, whether they're going to be a cop or in the boardroom or, you know, wherever, that they understand what it's like to be a member of society and how to return what they get from it. So that part is really important to me.
Yeah, lovely answer. So when you think of Kate's and the work that they're doing, I think it's easy to just say, well, they're a tutoring company, but Kate's has a larger suite of services. I think it's a great opportunity to let everybody know all the things Kate's does. I especially love what you've always said, you know, from cradle to career. It's not just we're going to help you, you know, increase your SAT score. By the way, my son's SAT score jumped 150 points in 5 weeks, so they do that. But,
Great. I had nothing to do with that, but
he set up the tutors. So
nobody wants me tutoring them in math. So the first thing we started with was academic tutoring. So basically anything you can think of in high school, we can tutor. We can tutor a lot of stuff in college as well, and sometimes even in graduate school. Then we moved on to test prep, so SAT, IC, which is the younger kids who are trying to get into high schools. We can help with the LSAT, the MCAT, the business school exams, graduate school exams, all of that. So any sort of academic tutoring, any test prep. And then we move on to something that Brian Zimmett recently told me. I had no idea you did that, which is application support. And this is anything from essays, the all-important personal statement on your application, to literally just making sure that the commas are in the right place in your application, on your Common App. Colleges will use anything to make sure that they have the right people, and a wrongly placed comma, no kidding, can make the difference. So there's that. And then there's the early career advising. So if you need a resume, you need to learn how to interview or network a little bit more effectively. We can help with that. And really the thing that I love the most is the long-term advising, the education advising. And this is where that thing that I talked about earlier today, just having a conversation, especially with a younger adolescent, to just reframe how they look at what education is and what they think their path should be in, where they want to be in 15 or 20 years. And linking that to everyday action now, whether they're in 5th grade or 7th grade or 10th grade, getting them to use and develop the prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain right here, which for adolescents hasn't grown yet. That's why they
can attest to that.
Yeah, that's why they will tell you, like, when you ask them, what were you thinking? They can legitimately say, I wasn't. Right? Because they don't make those connections the way we as most of us as adults do. So we do that long-term education advising to make sure that the students explore their opportunities now, right? So that they can figure out, if a kid comes to us and says, as a 5th grader, I want to be an astronaut. Great. Let's figure out what you can do now to take one step towards that goal, right? One step. And then it may be that, like, you take 1 step or 2 steps or 3 steps towards that goal and you realize, yeah, I don't like physics. I don't want to do that. Great. That's a whole bunch of information now that we have that we can course correct, right? So that part of what we do, and the way Chris especially does it, is, no kidding, he's like an adolescent whisperer. I've never seen anybody work with kids like that.
Yeah, I can attest to that. And I think it's important, if you think you want to be a doctor, but you find out that you pass out at the sight of blood, it's better to know that sooner rather than later.
For sure. Yeah.
How does Kate stay up? So you talked about, right, the obvious stuff, making sure the commas are in the right place or don't belong.
Yeah.
They're not there, that kind of stuff. But how does Kate's innovate, stay up in front of the trends? What's happening, right? The landscape's changing every second. It seems FAFSA is this, and now it's that. It's the SAT is the most important thing, and then it's that nobody wants it, and then they're trying to bring it back, some schools.
Yeah.
How do you stay up on that stuff?
I studied history and poli-sci in college. I'm a notorious nerd when it comes to current events, law, stuff like that. There are obviously very rapid changes going on in what the government wants us to do and wants colleges to do and wants students to do. So a big part of what we do is just absorbing the news and then talking to experts in the field about, like, hey, look, he says this is happening. Is that actually going to happen, or is that going to get struck down? That kind of thing. We also talk with people on both sides of the admissions process. So we have contacts at Ivies. We have contact at non-Ivies, small liberal arts colleges, who can tell us, here is what our institutional priorities are this year, because those things change. And the standards of an educational organization tend not to change very much. Things like what they want for a GPA and what they want for an SAT score. Those will incrementally change from year to year, but they're not going to swing, right, in huge ways. Whereas there's an acronym called PESL, which is why I have my phone here, that I just recently learned. And PESL stands for Political, Economic, Social, Technological, Legal, and Ethical. And those are priorities that will change, in some cases very rapidly. And so trying to stay up with those can be a challenge, but that's where, using all the data that we have access to and poring over it, going to conferences, that sort of thing, and reading the journals that we need to read.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Outside of the traditional work that you do, I know Kate's innovates and is in some different spaces. So take a second to talk about those bigger initiatives.
Yeah. So we currently have a contract with the Maine DOE. We're developing a portal for them for teachers to share information and best practices with them. We're not involved in the technology stuff. That's a main developer, but we're helping to do the education side of that. So we are, in some ways, a tech company as well. And then earlier this semester, some of us at Cates were sort of co-teaching a section at NYU Stern Business for seniors who we're looking to do a capstone experience. And so there are about 30 seniors who were looking to do a go-to-market strategy for an ed tech company. And we are that ed tech company, and we are developing an on-demand tutoring service for folks all over the world. And that's super exciting and very challenging. Companies have poured hundreds of millions of dollars into this kind of thing, and it has not worked out yet. But we think we've got something different. So we're excited to work with folks like NYU and all those students.
Love it. Let's turn to some of the personal stuff. So you're from Massachusetts, but somehow you're not a masshole. How did that? How did that happen, or more important, how did that not happen?
I disagree with the characterization. So the foundation of the question is not quite right.
Okay.
But so I grew up in Marblehead, Massachusetts. I was born in Salem. You've all heard of Salem, I assume. They had a slight witch problem. And grew up next door in Marblehead, which is sort of like a sailing community bedroom town for Boston. My dad's English. My mom's a Connecticut Yankee. So I'm all kinds of white.
Hence the poor spelling of your name.
Yes, I have my parents to blame for a superfluous O. So I went back and forth between the US and the UK for part of schooling. So I did a year after high school in England at an all-boys private school, where my dad went. The Sherborne School, and learned how to say yes sir, no sir, wear a suit every day, go to church twice a week, and also go to the school pub, which was interesting. But a lot of cross-cultural education, and then moved around a lot. So moved to Ann Arbor for 3 years after college, when I was still in the book business, and then finally landed here for 5 years. 10 years first, and then moved up to Vermont for 5 years, and then came back down. I've been here ever since.
To all our great benefit. So a lot of interesting and varied life experiences that led you to here, and I know more changes are in different life experiences afoot. So you want to take a second to talk about where you are?
Yeah. So about a week ago, I found out that I'm getting divorced, and so lots of changes coming up for me. I, of course, am sad about that, and I'm happy to talk to folks in a more serious way about, why that happened, et cetera. But I'm trying to treat it as, an opportunity in a weird way. Joe, you gave me something that when we were talking was a huge gift, which you said something like, sometimes the best decisions, or the decisions that had the most positive effect on my life, were decisions that I did not make. And I didn't make the decision to get this divorce. I understand the decision, and I still love Erin very much. Some of you have done work with Erin. She's an amazing therapist, and she's building something as her therapy practice that is incredible. You should keep working with her. She's fantastic. But I'm trying to look at this as the possibility is that maybe something good comes of this. Yeah. And so for the short term, I'm here until July 1. And then July 1, I'm going to drive out to Durango, Colorado, and I'm going to live there for a month. And then I'm going to drive from Durango to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm going to live there for a month. And then I'm going to go, I think, to Asheville, North Carolina, and live there for about 6 weeks. So luckily, Kate's has afforded me the opportunity to do the work that I love, and for the company, kind of wherever. My hope is that I can come back here, especially to you all, because I have no interest in leaving you folks who've been such a positive influence on my life in so many different ways. From getting me hired to a job, to advising me on different things, and ensuring literally ensuring my life. So all of this stuff, as well as just the personal relationships that I've fostered and you all have fostered with me. So so that's a little bit of the change that's coming.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's hard to open up, but as we talked about, it's important.
Yeah, I figured I'd rip the Band-Aid off and let everybody know. Not everybody know at the same time, because you knew, but yeah.
Okay, so just to tie it all up, what is the number one takeaway that you'd want people to have about your work and your commitment to education as a whole?
Yeah. So I really love working with adolescents. They get a horrible rap. You meet a student or a kid at the right time, and you really can, with just literally a sentence, can change the entire trajectory of their life. And my work, I don't work a lot with the students individually, but I can pair them with people who do. And I get to have conversations like the one that I had with you, Phil, and your son, Bear, was really special. I loved that meal and the opportunity to sort of meet your son, who is, I mentioned this to you before, uncommonly thoughtful in the way he approaches things. And I love having those kinds of conversations. And so when you all have a question about, my kid wants to do this, it seems fakakta, I don't think that should happen. Should I let them do that? Like, I love having those questions or those conversations. So, it's a weekend night, call me, text me, whatever. I really do want you to lean on me for these kinds of opportunities and possibilities, because I enjoy this stuff. So it's, a little bit of work, a little bit of fun. So that's it.
Amazing. Thank you.
That's great.